hug from Trump at an Atlanta Chick-fil-A while he met with supporters. Watch.
I don't care what the media tells you, Mr. Trump. We support you.
We love you.
Okay, 4 p.m. We've been 4 p.m.
Come here,
for a
let
while.
me give you a hug.
Please
Look at the joy. Here to tell us about it is that young woman herself, Michaela Montgomery. She's also the founder of a grassroots political group to conserve the culture. Michaela, I've been waiting for this interview all morning.
I've been waiting for this my whole life.
So thanks so much for joining us. So you told the president when you were hugging him, I don't care what the media says, we support you. Tell me what you meant by that.
I am so glad that is the first question you asked me. So, of course, in the excitement of everything, I wasn't able to really relay my message, but the general consensus or social media would have you thinking that if President Trump were to show up to the HBCU campuses or walk around the AUC community, that like some angry mob would form or a riot would ensue and that he would not be welcomed. And clearly the sentiment in that room the other day was the complete opposite. He was very welcome. People were excited to see him. People showed up in support of him, and people, of course, were from all four institutions within the AUC, the local HBCU community in Atlanta, and they all showed up in support of him. So it's actually kind of crazy to see people in an uproar when all four institutions were legitimately represented, and all four institutions were represented by said students who wanted to support President Trump.
It's just amazing, gang. There really is a political paradigm shift happening right before our very eyes, like we've never seen before. And it's catapulting President Trump back into the White House. And we're seeing it in real time because that paradigm shift is causing yet another major swing state to flip. We got the latest. It's going to absolutely blow you away. Greetings, everyone. It is Live Stream Friday. I am your host, Dr. Steve, your patron professor, here to help you stay sane in these insane times. So make sure to smack that bell and subscribe button. We've got a jam-packed show as always. I'm here to answer all of your questions, which I will do in due course. Now, of course, as has been the case over the last few months, our super chats have been disabled because we've been completely demonetized by Google. We are in the process of trying to rectify that. But in the meantime, all you got to do, if you want to ask me your question on today's live streams, just click on the link below. Sign up for our Insiders Club at join.turleytalks.com. Join.turleytalks.com, and you can ask me all the questions you want via our Insider Club platform, and I'll be happy to answer them right here on this live stream. If you sign up, it's just my gift to you. It's just $5 a month for a limited time, by the way. That's about to run out. Just $5 a month. It's the least I can do to show my appreciation for you as much as you have done for us during this time. All right, so let's dive right in here, gang. Something is happening in the great swing state of Pennsylvania. Voter registration trends are suggesting a massive shift over to the Republicans throughout the Keystone State. And the irony here is that the Democrats appear to only have themselves to blame for this. Many of you may remember when the Democrat Governor Josh Shapiro instituted automatic voter registration throughout the state. And everyone was freaking out, going, oh, here we go again. Here we go. This is the latest Democrat gimmick to fix the election for 2024. Well, whatever the intentions were, that gimmick has officially backfired. Check this out. In the first month after that automatic voter registration measure went into effect, the number of Democrats that registered was 3,194. 3,194, right? 3,200. The number of independents that registered was 4,052. And the number of Republicans that registered, 7,657. So if you're doing your math, right? As many Republicans registered in Pennsylvania in that 1 month alone as Democrats and independents combined. And to add insult to injury, independent registration outpaced the Democrats by nearly 900. So the Democrats have come in dead last in voter registration in Pennsylvania ever since Josh Shapiro put in that automatic voter registration measure. So in fact, Democrat voter registration, their advantage has gone from over 600,000 in 2020. Now, keep in mind, even that's pretty impressive. They had a 1 million voter advantage in 2012. All right, so that's been shrinking steadily now. They had a 600,000 voter registration advantage in 2020. Today, that's now just 397,000 advantage, which more than, by the way, more than makes up for the amount of votes that Biden won, quote unquote, that won back in 2020. Biden, quote unquote, won the state by a supposed 80,000 votes. So Democrats now have a 400,000 vote advantage, down from 600,000 in 2020, which itself was down from 1 million in 2022. Scott Pressler, who many of you know, he's a very good friend of our channel. He's been on here. We love him. He just posted comparable numbers just this morning. Scott's been on the front lines of Pennsylvania's voter registration, and his analysis is showing really the exact same thing. Democrats are shrinking in Pennsylvania, all as Republican registrations are growing. They're growing like wildfire. When all's said and done,
Hey, everybody, this is Scott.
Wait, right. We'll get him in there. Hold on a sec. When all is said and done, Republican registrations have surged by over 40,000 since November of last year. So just in the last few months, Republican registrations have soared 40,000, while Democrat registrations have decreased in that time period by 10,000. And it's largely because of what Scott is doing.
Hey, everybody, this is Scott Pressler. I'm here in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, and this November, we are going to flip Bucks County red.
And he's doing it. He's actively registering more and more Republican voters every single day, such that more and more Pennsylvania counties are poised to flip red. Scott is doing amazing stuff. Make sure to check him out on his Twitter feed. Scott Pressler, 1S, by the way, Presler, to keep up to date with what he's doing and to support what he's doing, because he's amazing. And these voter registration efforts are being corroborated by the latest big data polling of Pennsylvania that showed some pretty incredible results. This dropped just last week. Look at these numbers, gang. According to big data polling, Trump is now trouncing Biden by 5 in Pennsylvania. Again, this very extensive polling here. This is Rich Barris of the People's Pundit. He's the best. He's the one who he could predict election results literally within about 1% or within the margin. And he could do it by county. He did an amazing job in Virginia when Glenn Youngkin won there back in 2021. So if you look at this polling, it's not just a drop in the bucket in the flash polling. This is polling over a number of weeks, a big sampling over the entire state. And it found that Trump is up by over 5 points in Pennsylvania. Now, that's just head-to-head. When you factor in the other candidates, Jill Stein, RFK Jr., Cornel West, that lead grows then to 6. Head-to-head, Trump is leading Biden 45.7 to 40.3. And when you add in the leaners, those who haven't decided who they're going to vote for, but if you push them and say, well, look, if you had to vote today, who would you vote? If you add in those what are called leaners, Trump actually gains. He leads 47% to 41.3%. And by the way, that is also indicative of the fact that what Rich has been finding is that voters who have not registered, who have yet to register, when they do register, I think they're registering like 4-1 Republican. They're like 4-1 supporting Trump, right? Which is absolutely amazing. We'll talk about why that is in a moment in terms of the new political realignment that's happening. So head-to-head, Trump is leading 45.7 to 40.3. And when you add in your leaners, that lead grows from 47% to 41.3%. So that represents a near 2-point gain from the last big data poll back in March. So Trump is officially expanding his lead over Biden in this key swing state. And this is obviously gigantic. I think, what is it? Pennsylvania is the 10th largest population in the country. I forget which it is, but it's high up there. I think it's in the top 10. And just to show you how significant a Pennsylvania flip would be, let's go to the electoral map over at Red Eagles Politics, also another wonderful channel you want to follow. Now, assuming that Trump wins Georgia, right? We saw him in Atlanta, right? You just saw him in Atlanta with that wonderful girl at the beginning. You saw him in the Chick-fil-A, right? I mean, he's just crushing it in Georgia right now. He's been beating Biden in every single poll in Georgia since October. Okay, so assuming he wins Georgia, here's Trump's various paths to victory in November. He can win, all he needs is 2 states. He can win Michigan and Nevada, and he passes the 270 mark. He can win Michigan and Wisconsin, and he passes 270. He can win Michigan and Arizona, and he passes 270. Or he can win Arizona and Wisconsin, right? Or he can just win Pennsylvania. Assuming he wins Georgia, if Trump simply flips Pennsylvania, it's over. If Pennsylvania does what it did in 2016, Trump wins. He's back in the White House. And it's not just Pennsylvania, gang, in terms of these trends. In Michigan, Trump's lead in the polling aggregate, again, is now almost 5 points. That's the polling aggregate. That's the average of all the polling. He's winning both Pennsylvania in this latest big data poll and Michigan in the polling aggregate by the same margin. It's stunning. And keep in mind, as Rich Barris of the People's Pundit reminds us, Michigan has a larger share of non-college grad votes who are overwhelmingly across the country supporting Trump. Overwhelmingly. I mean, we're talking 80%. It's just astonishing. And by the way, they're as I understand, the very large majority of Michigan voters. So that blue-collar, non-college grad demographic is pulling Michigan way to the right towards Trump. And we're seeing it in the RCP polling average with that five-point margin. And to make it even sweeter, just to show you what's really going on here, we talked about this in a video the other day. The ultra blue state of Minnesota. The state that not even Ronald Reagan could win either in 1980 or 1984. Take a look at this Survey USA poll that just dropped right now as we speak. Trump and Biden, they are basically statistically tied. Biden has a slight lead of 44 over Trump's 42. The key factor there in this one is very interesting. It's the amount of support that other is getting, or third-party candidate is getting. That Minnesota tends to be attracted to. Minnesota, you know, they voted in Jesse Ventura as their governor, for heaven's sakes. They tend to be attracted to these kind of, you know, fringe candidates. And Red Eagle Politics had a great analysis on this. He pointed out that the rule of thumb here is that in Minnesota, if the third-party vote share hits the 8% threshold, the opposition, like Donald Trump, has a very good shot at actually winning the state because it just siphons so many votes away from the Democrat. And we're seeing this consistently representing the RCP average. If you think this polling, this USA polling is just sort of a, you know, an outlier, look at the RCP average, the Real Clear Politics polling aggregate that averages out all the polling here now, in this case, Minnesota. Look at it. It's the same margin. Biden's leading by 2, an average of 2.3 in freaking Minnesota. Now, again, if we compare that back to 2020, Biden was leading by over 7 in the polling aggregate. And that itself is suggestive because Biden ended up winning Minnesota by only 2 points. The polling average way overstated the Democrat support for Biden. The average was 7. He ended up winning by 2. And apparently, that's been a pattern for years, as I understand it. Minnesota tends to overpoll for the Democrats and underpoll Republican support. Republicans tend to come out in far more support than was predicted in each election. And if that's the case, can you imagine the horror the Democrats are going through right now, seeing Trump and Biden basically tied? If they're statistically tied in a state that even Reagan couldn't win, What else is going to fall? So what on earth is going on here? What's happening? Why is Trump crushing it like that? Is it just because Biden is so unpopular? Well, that's certainly not helping, but there's something much deeper going on. It really does look like we're seeing a political realignment happening. We saw it at the beginning of the video, and we got the receipts to prove it. But first, if you're just joining us, if you want to ask a question, because YouTube has demonetized our channel, unfortunately, our super chats are off. So if you want to ask me a question that I'll be happy to answer in this live stream, just join our Insiders Club. Join.turleytalks.com. Just $5 a month. A lot of you are so nice. You're so kind. When you ask me a question, you you drop $20 in the super chat, 10, 15, 50. You guys are amazing. Hey, you can ask me all the questions you want for just $5. How's that? It's my gift back to you because of the generosity of your support to us during this time period that we've been demonetized. Also, gang, with everything going on right now, it's hard to say what's actually could happen. We know we can't be complacent. We know the Democrats will stoop to new lows in 2024. And so we have to be ready for anything. And so that's why I've partnered with Goldco. Now, you guys know I'm a big fan of hedging future risk with the timeless value of gold and silver. And that's why you have got to click on that link below or go to turleytalkslikesgold.com and get your free, you heard that right, free gold and silver kits, an amazing free resource that shows you step-by-step how to get into precious metals tax-free and penalty-free, even if your money's still in a retirement account like the IRA or 401k. And the best part is that you may already actually qualify to get this $10,000 in free silver. We're hearing a lot of free, aren't we? Now, gang, you've seen the writing on the wall. Click on that link below or go to turleytalkslikesgold.com. Get your free gold and silver kit because, gang, this is, when all is said and done, this is about taking back control of your privacy and your freedom. We can't predict the future, but we can certainly prepare for it. So don't wait. Do what I've done. Do what countless patriots have done throughout the centuries. Invest in the amazing, timeless value of gold and silver. Defend your freedom, your privacy, and your future. Click on that link below right now. All right, gang. So we can actually see in real time what's happening in Pennsylvania with these polls. And this comes to us via a Wall Street Journal poll that just dropped yesterday. It's a poll of swing state voters in 7 different swing states. Oh, look at him laughing it up like that. But little does he know, it shows that right now, as we speak, President Trump is getting an astonishing 30% of black male votes and 11% of black female votes, which is more than double what he got in 2020. This is unbelievable. In 2020, according to exit polls, Trump got 12% of the black male vote, which was very high, by the way, comparatively speaking with other Republicans. So he got 12% of the black male vote in 2020, got about 4 or 5% of the black female vote in 2020. Now he is more than doubling that. 30%. I mean, he's approaching tripling that among black male voters, and he's getting double that among female voters, 11%. This is the single most black support for a Republican presidential candidate that we have seen in 50 years, since Richard Nixon's blowout election in 1972. That's how significant this is. This is the most support a Republican presidential candidate has gotten from black voters in half a century. And we saw it in Atlanta in those Chick-fil-A visits. They were so wonderful, right? With President Trump, you saw it. And you saw it with that political activist at the very beginning. She was like, don't listen to anyone, Mr. Trump. Don't listen to, we support you. We're with you. More, and she's absolutely right, more black Americans are with the Republican candidate than ever before. And it's no wonder then that we're seeing Trump not only winning the electoral vote, but now, according to political strategist Dick Morris, now Trump is even winning the popular vote. Now, this is historic. Again, we talked about this last week, but Morris has noted that the Republican candidate for president has lost the popular vote in 5 of the last 6 presidential elections. The one exception was George W. Bush in 2004, when he barely squeaked by and beat John Kerry in the popular vote. But now in the current polling over the last couple of weeks, Morris points out that Trump has led Biden in 9 of the 10 polls, right? That measure of, the 9 of 10 polls that measure a 5-way popular vote. So that's Trump, Biden, RFK Jr., Jill Stein, and Cornel West, right? Head-to-head, there's a little bit more leeway, but in the last 5-way polls, Trump has won 9 of the 10. In the last 33 polls taken over the last few months that surveyed the 5-way race, Trump has led in 29 of them. He's led in 29 of the last 33 polls. And Biden's only led in 2 of them. The 2 were tied. So Trump has led in 29 of the last 33 polls, surveying a 5-way race. Biden's only winning 2 of the last 33, surveying a 5-way race. The others are tied. This is gigantic. What we are seeing here, according to Morris, what we are seeing here is Trump poised to win the popular vote. He's the only Republican in 30 years since the election of George W. Bush in 2004. I guess I should say 20 years. He's the only Republican poised to win the popular vote. This is why Democrats are really starting to seriously freak out. And again, we could see why. The political sweet spot for Trump here, when all said and done, big picture aerial view, the political sweet spot is Trump minimizing the Democrat urban vote margin by siphoning more and more non-white votes than ever before away from Biden's margins, right? All the while maximizing the white rural vote, which normally doesn't, ironically, it just doesn't show up to the polls in huge numbers, except when Trump is on the ballot, right? This was the hard lesson of the 2022 midterms. Rural voters are low propensity voters. Write that down. Rural voters are low propensity voters. They're living out their lives in their own parallel world, and they've completely shut out Washington, D.C. You know, one of my favorite shows on TV is History Channel Swamp People. You guys check them out, about the gator hunters. I love that show, and I love Troy Landry. Hey, that's my man right there. He's my favorite guy on the planet. Shoot him. He's the Cajun king of the swamp. But those swamp people could care less, generally speaking, about what's happening in the DC swamp. They're living out their lives, and they could care less about this or that election, except when Trump is on the ballot. Then they come out in droves. So what Trump is doing here, at least when it comes to the polling, is he's maximizing that rural vote for himself, at the same time minimizing the urban vote for Biden, because he's siphoning so many of those voters over to his body. I mean, he's doubling the support that he had in 2020. That's the twofold punch that's giving him such an advantage here, what I'm calling sort of the political sweet spot. Maximize the rural vote, minimize the urban vote for Biden, right? The margin that Biden normally gets. But there is a third dynamic driving voters away from Biden across the board and galvanizing them around Trump. And that, of course, as I'm sure you guessed, is the economy. Look at this, gang. This is from the New York Post. Energy prices have soared 30% under Biden. Energy prices, okay? That's 13 times faster than the previous 7 years. That's 50% more than overall inflation, which rose by 3.5%. Now, we talked about this yesterday, that MSNBC panel of undecided voters. That was insane. That took the woke activists disguised as journalists over at MSNBC absolutely by. They were shell-shocked. They were stunned when they heard this about what they thought of Biden's economic policies. Check it out.
I think he's been absolutely disastrous for the economy.
I agree.
Raise your hand if you think President Trump's policies on the economy would be better for your family personally. Raise your hand. All right. So that is everybody. President Biden argues that his economic record has been very good. He said President Trump's was not as good. What are you keying off of, Sean? Since you had the best smile, and Virginia the second best smile. What are you keying off of to say President Trump's economic policies would be better for you?
My past performance of my 401k. I know it was post 2020 and everything kind of flipped around, but you can't blame everything on 2020 for forever.
We have areas here in Pennsylvania where it's just at a standstill right now. Like, things are supposed to be being built and the interest rates are just way too high for people to invest and start moving around.
And Virginia, just staying with you because Pennsylvania is near and dear to Joe Biden's heart. Are there Biden policies that you would blame for the problem? And if so, what are they?
The interest rate is so high right now, and I know they're trying to cut the inflation down, but like, if nobody is building, no businesses are really coming to Pennsylvania right now to keep us moving forward.
And now we can see, it's no coincidence that Pennsylvania is flipping right there. You just saw, again, in real time. Remember, Robert Barnes, good friend, often says this: Pennsylvania demographically is basically Philadelphia on one side, Pittsburgh on the other, and Alabama in between, right? and those rural, conservative, populous Alabaman Pennsylvanians are rising up and saying we've had enough with this economic insanity. I love it when they said, Joe Biden, the commentator there at MSNBC, Joe Biden said, his policies are making things better. What do you think? And they all start to laugh. And to make matters even worse, gang, unfortunately, we got recession alerts flashing all over the place. So this is according to Business Insider. The economy is flashing a handful of warning signs that a recession could, in fact, be on its way. In particular, there's something called the SOM rule, which is a famous recession indicator that flashes when, as I understand it, it's the 3-month moving average of the U.S. unemployment rate climbs 50 basis points from a 12-month low. Okay, so typical economic, speech. But basically, as I understand it, the SOM rule averages out the unemployment rate over the last 3 months, and then it compares it to the unemployment rate of the previous 12 months, and then they arrive at a conclusion. And basically, the gist of it is that the number that we're getting currently is very close to the number that we were seeing in 2001, 2008, and 2020 recessions. So Business Insider is, it's basically sounding the alarm here that we may indeed be seeing a recession in the next few months. And that's radically detrimental to Biden's reelection prospects because, as you know, and we talk about this often on the channel, no president has ever been successfully reelected if a recession has occurred anytime in the last 2 years of his term. Remember, I think in many ways we've already been in a recession, but we had, if I recall, 2 consecutive quarters of negative growth. And do you remember all the whole media go, oh, no, but that's not necessarily a recession. It was a recession for everybody else in history, but not now. Oh, no. We can't use the R word because we start using the R word, Biden is toast. And that means number 45 becomes number 47. So, I mean, it literally could not be getting worse for bumbling Biden. And one commentator is making a very good argument that all this we're seeing, the rise of the rural vote, the defection of the black vote, and the crumbling economy, all of it together, it's like a perfect storm, creating a very real political realignment around Trump like we've never seen before. You're going to love this. But first, gang, if you're just joining us, if you want to ask a question because YouTube has demonetized our channel, just click on that link below. Join our Insiders Club at join.turleytalks.com. That is join.turleytalks.com, and ask me your questions through that platform. Just $5 a month. You can ask me as many questions as you like. I'll be happy to answer them on this live stream. Also, I want you all to have a chance at getting even with Nancy Pelosi. Boo! You know that she and her ilk have been getting insider trading secrets for decades now, enabling their returns to beat the market every single year. How about that? But thanks to a little-known SEC database, guess what? we can have access to the very same trading secrets that these politicians are privy to. We get to see what stocks CEOs are buying up in real time, and then we get to piggyback on those trades to gain the same advantage for ourselves that Pelosi and the crooks in D.C. have. My good friend Ross Givens has been tracking insider trading for years now, and his recommendations have led to investment returns of over 200%. Some of it as high as nearly 1,500%. And now it's your turn. Ross is an amazing guy. You're going to love him. Click on that link below right now and learn how you too can trade like Pelosi. Click on that link and learn how to gain an insider advantage for yourself today. All right, gang, there is a great piece out today that was just published in the Federalist by J.T. Young. It's called, Is Trump Rising Is Trump Writing a Realignment Wave? And the byline is this: Trump's seemingly improbable rise as a political novice could be chalked up to the fracturing the Democratic Party and a new political realignment. Now, we've talked a lot. If you're a regular to this channel, if not, make sure to smack that bell and subscribe button. But if you are a regular to this channel, you know we talk a lot about realignment, political realignment. It's happening not just here, but happening all over the world, particularly in Western Europe. And the gist of the argument that this fellow makes for the Federalist is this: with the radical left, the woke progressives taking over the Democrat Party, it is essentially shattering the more consensus-driven coalition that Jimmy Carter, Bill Clinton, and Barack Obama had forged over the last few decades. So what we're seeing, in effect, in real time is the far left taking control over the Democratic Party. And, you know, one of the key characteristics of the far left is that there is no basis for dissent. Silence is compliance. You are not allowed to disagree with them. The moment you disagree, you're exemplifying, bigoted, racist, phobic, sexist tendencies. So the far left has taken over the Democratic Party. And what that's doing is it's fracturing the party in three particular areas, right? We've talked about each of these in turn, but it's good to rehearse these. We're seeing with the rise of wokeness, we're seeing the splitting of the Democratic Party basically in half. The left is being split by wokeness. So you break up any woke issue, from trans athletes in women's sports to CRT to puberty blockers and kids and so forth. What you'll find is about half of the left will be all for it. They'll support it. But the other half, right, the Bill Maher half, the Piers Morgan half, what's her name and the Young Turks, the Anna Kasparian left, they despise it and oppose it. They want nothing to do with it. So wokeness is splitting the left and causing many former leftists like Naomi Wolf and RFK Jr. and J.K. Rowling, right? We've just seen that of late. They're all leaving. They want nothing to do with those leftists at all, right? I interviewed Bridget Phetasy, the comedian who's been on Joe Rogan several times. She just calls herself a disaffected leftist. She feels excommunicated from the party. And she's basically like, where you could shove it. She had no problem smacking the door that got shut behind her. So she wants nothing to do with them anymore. And so what you're finding is that now, while they're not necessarily going over to the Republican Party, they're not voting Democrat either. And that's key. So remember, part of Trump's plan is to maximize the rural vote and then minimize Joe Biden's vote, particularly the urban vote, but minimize his vote altogether. Well, the left is doing that for him. That's the argument of this piece. The left is minimizing the vote for him by having the far left take over. So the far left takes over. They impose wokeness on their party, and half the party hates it. Now, again, Bill Maher will always vote Democrat. Make no mistake. He will always vote Democrat. But that's not the only option. You're seeing the Naomi Wolf option, seeing the RFK Jr. option, where they are breaking away and they're not having it. Tulsi Gabbard, they want nothing more to do with the Democratic Party. So that's one thing that's breaking up. So wokeness is splitting the left. Then, of course, you've got the civil war inside the Democrat Party between the pro-Palestinian progressives and the pro-Israeli liberals. That's a huge problem. You're seeing on college campuses, right? One of the latest is, where was it? At Columbia University, I forget where the dean had invited these students over to his house. And then they started holding a pro-Palestinian protest there, and they wouldn't leave. And the dean and his wife were like, "Get out of our house. This is our house." It was hilarious. I mean, the left is just absolutely eating itself. So anyway, you're seeing the civil war between pro-Palestinian progressives and pro-Israeli liberals. And that is very serious for Joe Biden in a state like Michigan, where we're finding that in places like Dearborn, where that has one of the highest density Muslim populations in the country, they're not coming out and voting for him. In the Michigan primaries, he lost Dearborn. Dearborn voted for Biden by 70% of the vote in 2020. He lost Dearborn in the primaries to, as it were, none of the above, right? Or what was it? What did they put in? I forget. There was a phrase they put in there, a term they put in instead, and he lost to that 3-1. So they're doing everything they can to tell Biden, as long as you are standing up solely with Israel and against the Palestinian people, we're not voting for you this time. And that's, by the way, that was enough of a margin to give. Just that alone is enough to give Trump Michigan. So very serious stuff between the pro-Palestinian progressives and the pro-Israeli liberals. And then thirdly, you have another civil war. And that is where you're seeing this increasing alienation of social services for particularly urban Democrats and illegal migrants who are getting all the social services instead of them at their expense, right? So you're seeing more and more Democrats, urban Democrats, coming out and holding rallies against the Democrat mayor that they supported in previous election, because the Democrat mayor is basically welcoming in all of these illegal migrants and giving them their voting constituents services and goods at the expense of their voting constituents. So you're just seeing this coalition unravel at 3 levels. So what is Trump doing? Trump is using a populist approach to capitalize on the radical left's fracturing of the Democrat Party. He's not, this is the brilliance of Trump. He's not requiring you as a former Democrat to, quote, join the other side, right? To jump over and join the other side, right? Because in that sense, you're thinking about the animosity of the parties horizontal, or you're thinking about the political animosity horizontally. The historic political divide is horizontal. It's left versus right. It's Democrat versus Republican, right? It's liberal versus conservative. That's not what Trump is doing here. The genius of Trump's approach is he's redefining the divide. And he's redefining the divide in an all-inclusive manner. Trump is shifting the divide away from the horizontal, left versus right, and redefining it in terms of the vertical. It's now the people versus the political class. It's the ruled versus the rulers. It's the ordinary American versus the oligarch. This is making jumping ship away from the Democrats infinitely easier. This is making it incredibly easy for disaffected Democrats to jump ship. They don't feel like they're defecting to the other side, as it were. Instead, they feel like they're simply joining up with fellow citizens to push back against a corrupt and crooked political elite, regardless of the party. And we can all agree on that, can't we? We can all agree that our politicians are a bunch of corrupt crooks, can't we? So that's exactly the magic of Trump's populist approach. And it is absolutely galvanizing both white and non-white voters together like, frankly, never before. And that's why the polls are showing the results that they've been showing. Over to you, gang. Let's get your questions in here as Josh, our moderator, assembles your questions. Remember, because YouTube has demonetized our channel, just click on that link below. Join our Insiders Club and ask me your questions through that platform. Just $5 a month. That's it. You can ask me as many questions as you like. I'll be happy to answer them right here, right now. Also, I wanted to take a minute and share just a really special opportunity with you to begin building your legacy through real estate. Now, Andrew Carnegie famously said that 90% of millionaires in America are created through real estate, right? Think of Trump. Look what he's done. I talk to so many of my listeners who tell me that they really do want to start investing in real estate, but they just don't know how. So I wanted to tell you about my very good friend and Turley Talk sponsor, Jeff Rakowski. Jeff is amazing, gang. I'm serious. Jeff is amazing. And it's not just the fact that he and I grew up, we didn't even know, 10 minutes away from each other in Connecticut. Jeff is awesome. He owns, get this, over $250 million worth of real estate across America. How's that, huh? How's that for a resume? And he is one who I go to for real estate advice. Jeff is the man. He's leading a movement of Christian patriots who are on a mission to do real estate God's way so that they can walk away from their corporate jobs once and for all and build a legacy for future generations. Jeff and his team have opened up some time to talk to just you. How's that? That's your privilege. They've opened up some time to talk to you guys about your goals, about how they can potentially help you make those goals a reality. I mean, it's just a quick 15-minute call. And Jeff is the real deal. I really encourage you to take advantage of it. He's not going to pressure you to do anything. He wants to know what your goals are and whether or not his services can help you achieve those goals. So go to freeintrocall.com or just click on the link below, freeintrocall.com right now to book a call with Jeff and his team. And a lot of people don't know this, but you don't actually need to have like tons of money in your bank account and years of experience to start investing in real estate. Jeff always says it. You don't need hundreds of thousands of dollars. You don't. That's what makes real estate so unique. There is a path for everyone. So come on now, take control of your life. Build that parallel police and that parallel economy in your own life first. Go to freeintrocall.com to learn more about how Jeff and his team could potentially come alongside you and help you reach your goals through real estate. I've gotten in real estate, gang. That's a big. I love gold. I love real estate. I love things that are timeless in value, and I encourage you to do the same. Slots are limited. I do expect them to fill up quickly. So go to freeintrocall.com. Book an intro call with Jeff and his team today. You're not going to regret it. You'll love it. All right, gang. What do we got? What do we got, Josh? Questions? No questions? Oh, good. I can go home early. See you. Bye. Joshua McKay. How do we know the letter from Stormy Daniels is legit, or is it too legit? Okay. Yeah. So, well, obviously it's going to have to get corroborated. It's interesting that it came out the exact same year, 2018, that Michael Cohen's letter came out admitting that the money he paid her was not at the behest of Trump. It was not pressured by Trump, and he was not recompensated by Trump for it. So either he's lying now, he's either lying now or he's lying back then. So that's going to have to flesh itself out, but it does appear like it's real. It does appear like, I mean, again, it'll be, it could be very embarrassing for Trump if it were not. So I'm presuming, as opposed to assuming, that he did his due diligence to make sure that that was indeed a legit letter. I think he had it. I think he had it as an ace to draw out when he thought he needed it. Now, with the ridiculous gag orders that are being imposed upon him by that corrupt judge, his adult daughter, has been profiting off of this trial. It seems to be a pattern in Fulton County in New York, doesn't it? I think he just decided to break it out because the trial starts on Monday. So we'll have to see what happens there. Thanks, Josh. Kevin, can you comment on Kari Lake's recent filings in SCOTUS, proof of illegal elections in 2020 and 2022? I cannot. I have not kept up with that, unfortunately. It seemed to me that with her Senate candidacy, she was giving up on it. So you're telling me she's not. I'll have to check up on that and catch myself up to that. Sorry, Kevin, for that. Check back with me on Monday on that. Our Monday live stream. We do live streams Monday nights and Fridays. Josh, what's the backup plan to all the rhinos bailing out of the house? Like, what the heck? Get rid of them. That's the only backup plan. These guys are the biggest scumbags on the planet. They really are. They hate you. They hate the new MAGA movement that's taking over the party. And they're more aligned with Nancy Pelosi and Karl Rove than they are with Trump or Marjorie Taylor Greene or Matt Gaetz. And there's nothing you can do. We do have to understand. This is, I think, what Trump is getting a little upset with Marjorie Taylor Greene on it. This is the pressure that Mike Johnson is under. He's basically getting blackmailed and holding these votes by members of Congress and saying, we're going to leave. I mean, who was it? There was one member of Congress. If he dropped out now, he's leaving. If he dropped out now, there was plenty of time to get either have a quick snap election to replace him or have the governor in a red state appoint his replacement. And he decided, no, I'm going to retire. I'm going to leave after that deadline passes. So you have to wait till November to fill my seat. I mean, these guys are scumbags. Paul Ryan hates you. Make no mistake. Michael Steele, who actually ran the Republican National Committee, let that hit you. He was the head of the Republican. He is now one of MSNBC's most beloved commentators. He is a far left nut. Joe Scarborough hates you. And these guys are no different. It's the old, remember, we're in an interregnum period right now. And an interregnum period in social analysis is the period between when the previous dominant paradigm falls, it gets brittles and falls, and it still has leftover and so forth. And the new paradigm rises. So it's the in-between between the no longer and the not yet. It's the in-between between the no longer and the not yet. So the not yet is the rising MAGA movement. That's happening no matter what. No matter what happens in November, you're not going to see the Paul Ryans come back. And no one will come out and vote for them. They're not coming back. The Never Trumper movement is dead no matter what happens in November. The MAGA movement is here now. That's what it is. It's civilizational populism. It's the same that's happening all over the world, right? So it's here, but it has yet to gain institutional structural power. It's the old paradigm that still has it. The old paradigm has nobody voting for it anymore. It's dead, right? It's no more. But the MAGA movement that has plenty of people voting for it doesn't have the institutional power yet. So it's the not yet. So in between, this is the insanity we're dealing with. And it just makes no sense other than they hate you. It's that simple. Other than they hate you. There's no sense. They're not. I guess the sense is this is the way to make sure that Trump doesn't win again. That's basically what because that's the one thing that they agree with Nancy Pelosi on and on how to make money. Joan, yesterday, Roman Balmakov on Facts Matter, very good, yeah, for Epoch Times, reported that the National Popular Vote Interstate Compact is 76% complete. What is it even constitutional for states to collude to circumvent the Constitution and amendment process? What can we do to stop it? I have heard that some states are talking about this, but not that they were getting anywhere with it. Boy, you guys are stumping me today. I am not sure. Let me see. Let me just check Roman's channel here real quick. I'm assuming it was on YouTube or Rumble. Just see if there's something in the description that can help me there. Oh, is this to get rid of the is it to get rid of the Electoral College? Let me check. Facts Matter. I was on a show with Roman years ago. 76% scheme to eliminate Electoral College. 76% complete. I don't know. We're gonna have to see on that. I'm taking a look at this. Yeah, I'll have to take a look at the data. Red states are not getting rid of the Electoral College. Yeah, I 76% seem way high. Red states, that's their only way of competing with LA and New York and Chicago. They're not getting rid of the Electoral College. This is a Democrat plan, so Republicans aren't coming anywhere near this. So I'll have to take a look. Yeah, we'll have to see again. I hope this is just not another false panic for freaking views. I don't want to implicate Roman or anything like that. So I should just but it just seems like so here's another thing we should not be thrown off our game. Stay focused, stay focused on Trump, stay focused on voter registration, and then stay focused on voter turnout and vote and then vote accountability at the polls and precincts. Stay focused. Don't get too distracted by any of this stuff. Richard, Dr. Steve, is the police shooting in Chicago going to ignite another George Floyd riot? So far, it doesn't seem to have. I know what you're talking about, and I've been keeping abreast of it from afar, and I'm not seeing it. It would be bizarre if it were now happening under a Biden regime. It's very interesting. It happened under Trump, and there are many who believe that it was instigated, that it was orchestrated by the powers that be, a kind of color revolution. Now that they have one of their own in power, they're not going to allow that. So there may be internal forces at work here that are going to keep the lid on any possible explosion there. Paul, how much chance do you think there is of Steve Garvey defeating Adam Schiff here in California? The mainstream media propaganda seem to be keeping a lid on the relevant information. I haven't been keeping up with it because I don't think there's much of a chance. Just 70% of your vote is cosmopolitan at this point. It's coastal elite cities. You're in many ways in California. The as I understood demographically, the rural areas are very, very conservative, but so many people have ended up just leaving, just being so affronted by the insane wokeness there. So we'll have to see. We'll have to see. Right now, I don't have any data whether he can do it or not. My sense is there's just no way. There would have to be such an unraveling of the Democrat coalition in California that's just amassed so powerfully. They know how to do it. Republicans are doing it in Florida right now, big time. They're doing it in North Carolina right now, big time. They're doing it in Texas while they're trying to kill themselves with Ken Paxton, trying to take out Ken Paxton, one of the single best attorney general in the country, MAGA extraordinaire. So they're shooting themselves in the foot. But in Oklahoma as well, Idaho, there's a lot of places where Republicans are doing the same thing that California is doing in terms of solidifying a power base for the foreseeable future. But that would have to totally break apart. And as we saw with the Larry Elder gruesome Newsom recall, I mean, it's just very hard. It's very, very hard to break that apart. Vlad, how soon do you think Iran will retaliate against Israel? Stunning, isn't it? They have been playing it they've been playing it very patient. I'm telling you, I think they're talking to Putin. I don't know. But I have a just the way they're playing this patience card. It's very, very Putin-esque. It's very Russian. Russians are incredibly patient in warfare, far more than Westerners, and they know Westerners get incredibly impatient, as by the way, the Taliban knew. They knew they could just wait us out about 20 years. I just think I think they're employing the when you least expect it strategy. It is stunning. They have not. It's stunning the amount of restraint they've exercised thus far. Now, of course, this. I would argue this is Israel's attempt to try to drag the United States into this war. Make no mistake. I think so for right or for wrong. I'm not playing sides here. I'm just saying Israel thinks they will benefit if the United States comes in on their behalf, and they see that support waning as more and more people are just, again, for right or for wrong. I'm not arguing one way or the other. There's all kinds of arguments can be made. But even Trump said, clearly Israel's losing the PR battle. Clearly more and more people are going, whoa, you are decimating Gaza, and you're killing lots and lots of innocent people and children. And we can't, you got to stop. All right. Yeah. October 7th was horrible. But are you just going to, does that just give you license now to just kill people for every day for the next, for the perpetual future here in perpetuity? So Israel sees the support waning, hitting Iran was an Iranian target outside of Iran. Hitting Iran provoked what probably is America's number one enemy when all's said and done. Iran humiliated us 40 years ago, right? And Americans never forgiven Iran for that. Iran is so for me, Iran is an extremely, complicated civilization to share with my mostly American audience, because in many ways, scholars argue that our post-globalist, post-secular, civilizationalist world actually began with the Iranian Revolution. It began with the reinstitution of a theocracy, a Shiite theocracy in Iran. And that basically blew a hole into the secularization, modernization, progressive thesis that the world was just going to get more and more liberal, more and more progressive, because the Shah was instituting a lot of liberal Western values into Iran. One of the reasons why I got overthrown. And the success, the undeniable success, I mean, just in terms of them staying in power, of the Iranian Revolution and the massive amount of support they do get among the Iranian population, whether we like it or not, again, for right or for wrong, suggests that thesis suggested that thesis was had some problems with it. And of course, it's only gone downhill from there since the turn of Russia back to the Russian Orthodox Church, the turn of China back to Confucianism, the turn of Japan to more and more imperial Shinto philosophy, the rise of the BJP, the Bharatiya Janata Party, and in India with Hindu nationalism, the rise of Erdogan in Turkey, and the resurgence of Ottoman sensibilities, the return of the pharaohs, as we call it, in Egypt, and in Israel itself, Israel becoming basically an Orthodox Jewish theocracy in many respects. So, and among Palestinians turning to Hamas and hardcore Islamism. So, we're just seeing it. We're seeing the world that Iran forecasted in the Iranian Revolution 79 coming to full fruition now. So, but the problem is when I present, Iran was actually the first nation to do this. Everyone's like, Iran sucks. We all want a more conservative, civilizationalist world. We know it's got its problems, as we see, but at least, wokeness won't be one of those problems. So we're all very excited about that world emerging. And then when I say, Iran was the first one. What? Iran? Wait a minute. Huh? I hate Iran. So Israel knows Americans just still are very, very bitter for how Iran humiliated us under the Carter years. And so they're hoping they can drag us into this conflict. We'll see. They better not. They better not be right. That is, according to Sam Huntington and his Clash of Civilization, that's the number one rule. You don't transgress. You don't fight in a civilizationalist world. You do not militarily engage with a non-alike culture. So again, this is part of the ways you keep your cultures and your civilizations peaceful, is that if you're a civilization, if you belong to a civilizational bloc then generally you're going to work things out because you have common cultural interests, common national interests, common, common sentiments, common moral base, what have you. It's when one civilization starts breaking in and hitting the other civilization where you see it in what are called cleft countries, countries where you have overlapping, overlapping incommensurate civilizations like we had in the Balkans, Yugoslavia, right? Orthodox Catholic and Islamic civilizations overlapping. That's where the clash of civilizations are going to happen, according to Sam Huntington's analysis. You're looking for where in the globalist era, where culture no longer mattered, what was important was political and economic systems. You're looking for where they inadvertently, or perhaps even purposely, overlapped incommensurate civilizations. Yugoslavia would be a perfect example. Ukraine would be another example, with more Orthodox Russian, and then more. They're still Orthodox, but their sensibilities are Catholic. Their Eastern Catholic sensibilities in the West, and then of course Israel, with Palestine and Israel, just two Jewish and Islamic civilization clashing, and what Huntington said is let a more dominant, if there is one, a more dominant core state deal with the clash. Do not get involved with incommensurate clashing civilizations. Don't get involved with that. And given who Biden is, I wouldn't be surprised if we did. But regardless, I think, I think Iran is going to attack one way or the other, obviously, and they're just waiting. They're being very, very cunning, and I think they want to see what America's doing as well and how America's posturing. If Iran attacks Israel as they threaten, will we then see a play out of Ezekiel chapters 38 and 39, Gog and Magog, right? In which attackers suffer 83% casualty, 100% material loss. Israelis burn the weapons of war with fire for 7 years. Good question, Terry. I mean, if Gog and Magog is talking about that, then yes, we will be seeing that. Of course, the $10,000 question is what is Ezekiel 38 and 39 actually prophesying? That's the 10,000 quote. I don't know. I honestly don't. I couldn't answer your question on that. That will be fascinating to watch. Joan, how do I not reason with a younger relative who made the statement, I tend to go with Dems because I feel they're mostly right, though not nearly enough, certainly, and are caring for the planet, for people, and tend to be more like Jesus would want us to be. How do you reason with a person like that? Let me see. I tend to go with Dems because I feel they're mostly right, though not nearly enough, certainly, are more caring for the planet, for people, and tend to be more like Jesus. Yeah, it's a very amorphous sentiment. So it's hard to, look, American Christianity is embarrassing today at multiple levels. And it's embarrassing in the sense that it got privatized, particularly in the 1940s. Definitely by the early 1960s, when we expelled prayer and Bible reading from the schools. But what that Supreme Court Act symbolized was that Christianity no longer belongs in the public square. It's solely private. Now, that was a huge blow to Christianity and to all faiths, by the way. It was, generally speaking, a huge blow. Not in all ways, but in most, I would argue. And it was a huge blow because public and private life operate by different metrics, by different dynamics. Public life deals with the objective. Private life deals with the subjective. Public life deals with the obligatory. Private life deals with the optional. Public life applies to all. Private life appeals to only some. So think of taxes, right? Taxes are public. They're not private. You don't, when the IRS shows up at your door, you don't get to say, oh, I'm not interested. Thank you very much. Move on, right? Public life is objective. Private life is subjective. Public life is obligatory. Private life is optional. Public life applies to all. Private life applies to only some. So what happens when you take the church that from its very beginning in the Greco-Roman world offered an alternative public? That's what ecclesia means. That's the Greek word for church. Ecclesia is the ruling space of the adult citizen males who ruled over the polis, over the city-state. Ecclesia is a political governmental term. So what do you do when you take that ecclesia that represents either an alternative public to that of pagan Rome, or the full realization of God's public in the New Jerusalem and the kind of Christendom-based societies that flowed out of that? What do you think happens to that faith when you pick it up out of the public realm and you stick it in the private realm, when you stick it next to pizzerias and dry cleaners? Right? Just think about your urban planning in Europe, for example, or just in a Commonwealth in the United States, New England Commonwealth. The church was often the most prominent building in the whole of the city. Now go to modern day cities. Where's the church? You can't even see it, right? It's nowhere to be found. Or if you do see it, it's shoved off into the periphery of life next to pizzerias, dry cleaners, Weight Watchers clinics, Chinese buffets. Oh, and First Methodist. So what happens? What happens is the church has lost its capacity to proclaim truth. Now, by the gift of the Holy Spirit, thank God, many of us are still persuaded. But make no mistake, the church has lost its ability to witness to truth, because truth is objective. Truth is not subjective. Truth is obligatory. Truth is not optional. Truth applies to all. Truth does not apply to only some. So when you push the church into the private sphere of life, don't be surprised when Christians become unidentified from secular liberals. And that's who you're dealing with. That's why I kind of set it up that way. You're dealing with someone who claims to be, quote, Christian, by embracing the new public morality that used to be occupied by Christianity, but which has since been expelled and is now occupied by wokeness. Now, this person is right in one sense, that secular ideologies are often, Carl Schmitt argued this, secular ideologies are often just decaffeinated religious ones. So wokeness is trying to save, right? Liberalism, Democrats are trying to save the planet. They're trying to, so there's a whole soteriology there, trying to save the oppressed. They're trying to, trying to treat everybody. There's a soteriology there that sounds Christian. But it's completely, like I said, I think that's a good term. It's decaffeinated the ideology of any actual Christian frames of reference so that anybody could believe it. You don't have to be a Christian. Anybody can believe it. Again, and therefore it literally has nothing to do with Christianity any longer. So that's just a big setup, I think, to use that as your. One of the things that I like to do is I like to say things like that, to say that's why I don't go along with you. It's not even I'm trying to get you to go along with me. It's more I don't go along with you. When you say that they're more like Jesus would want us to be, I would say this is why I don't buy it, because I think you've redefined Jesus in liberal terms. You've created Jesus after the liberal image, whereas what you're doing is you're presenting them as being created after Jesus' image. So I think you're reinventing Jesus in accordance with these new public norms. And I can understand why, because we all have to have a morality. We all have to have an ethical, we all have to have an ethical foundation with which to live out our collective social lives. Christianity used to define that ethical obligation in the West. Today, it is a shell, a decaffeinated shell of Christianity, which is wokeness, which is becoming more and more religious. So I would go there, and then generally the second area I tend to go is refeudalization. And refeudalization we talk about on the channel a lot, and that is Joel Kotkin, Kotkin, is a very good article on that, refeudalization or neo-feudalization. He's a professor at Chapman College. And basically we're living at a time where more power and wealth is being amassed in the hands of fewer and fewer people, where billionaires and bureaucrats basically control everything. And then they impose that control through wokeness, because wokeness removes any grounds for dissent. So we have to comply with what they want. And as part of that wokeness is redefining the family, redefining gender, redefining sexuality and the like in such a way that basically destroys those mediating institutions of faith, family, and freedom. And when you destroy those mediating institutions of faith, family, and freedom, not only is that something not Jesus, not only is that something Jesus would never defend, but it also then carves out a vacuum that the state and wokeness can continue to fill. So I would argue this person is arguing for a very tyrannical conception of life. But I again, if they're bringing Jesus into it, I do think it's important you understand the background of why they're doing that. Don't judge them too quickly. Don't say that's a terrible theology. No, it's the reality of basically 5 decades of privatized Christianity that conservatives bought into. Conservatives were all for it. They had no problem with privatized Christianity. So it's our fault. And then you just have to flesh it out. So you may have to listen back to that video a couple of times to get all those points. But those are kind of the 3 points I would go with. Or I guess there are 2 points, right? It's public and private. And so I think what you're doing is you're redefining your private Jesus in light of this new public morality rather than the other way around. And then what is it in the end that the Democrats are advocating, and even some Republicans are advocating? It's this refeudalization, which in the end is very tyrannical because the wokeness ends up destroying faith, family, and freedom. It redefines the family, redefines faith, redefines sexuality and so forth in such a way that basically destroys and removes the intermediary institutions of family and church and community, that I think not only does Christianity fundamentally support, and Christ fundamentally support, obviously the church, but also provide the basis for humane, free form of life, because it prevents the state from taking over that sphere that faith, family, and freedom would normally hold. There you go. Complex, a little more complex than it should be, but there you go, Joe. Pat, how does one donate to Mr. Trump without going through WinRed? I've checked at different times, but it seems fundraising always comes through WinRed, even when I've gone to the link that Laura posts. Interesting. So what is his? Isn't it Take America Back? What's Trump's PAC? I thought it was Take America Back, right? I'm forgetting now. Trump's PAC. Ooh, Trump's new super PAC says it has 27 mil after their I've got True Social. There, Save America PAC. Yeah, and it's amassing a lot of money. I think it's Save America PAC. I remember when I was at Mar-a-Lago, he talked about that. Save America, donate to Save America PAC. So I think that's how you do it directly to Trump. William O2, Dr. Steve, good AM. Do you have any data on New Jersey going red? Thank you. Oh, so Trump said he had some data of New Jersey going red. I don't have any at my fingertips. I have not, and it's not going to get polled as extensively as like a Pennsylvania or Michigan or Wisconsin or Georgia, just because it's not considered swing state. Swing states are the ones that get pulled dramatically. So there could be an upset. We could see another kind of 2021 happen there, the year Glenn Youngkin won, and they almost came literally within 1%. If we didn't have Ronna McDaniel, we would have won New Jersey. And it was interesting. It was Rich Barris who was running around just pulling his hair out, yelling and screaming leading up to that first week in November. We can win New Jersey. We got polling. So I haven't seen it. So we'll have to see. Trump said he thinks they can take it. Jennifer, I heard a commentator, maybe it was you, that said that Donald Trump is going to need to choose a running mate that leftist globalists are more afraid of than they are of him. One reason is to deter any attempts to take him out. Two come to mind for me, Carrie Lake and Marjorie Taylor Greene. What comes to mind for you? Oh, yeah, no, absolutely. Either two of those would be amazing. I think Carrie's all in on the Senate bid, so that's taken up. Marjorie Taylor Greene would be phenomenal. I think she would be amazing. I love Marjorie Taylor Greene. I think she has just a very special way of brass knuckles politics that's very people oriented. Matt Gaetz would be terrific. He's out, I know, but and the real paradigm shifter would be RFK Jr. Not because I agree with his policies, but because he is 100% taking down the very deep state that killed his dad. Just if the what do they call them? The censors are listening to us here. That he thinks that he openly believes killed his dad. But I think, Tulsi Gabbard as well. I think she's all in on taking down the deep state, because that's what I think is our number one priority. If we don't take down the deep state, nothing we do will last. They'll just wait us out, just like the Taliban. They'll just wait us out, get rid of us after the 4 years or 8 years, and then they'll just go right back to work. So we've got to get rid of the deep state, and everybody who's wanting to get rid of the deep state is on our side. Who else? My wife and I were just talking about this the other night. Oh, Tucker. Tucker's serious. Tucker would be amazing. Because he has the trust of the whole MAGA movement and most Republicans. And he's a total outsider, and they'd be scared to death of him because he just hates power and he hates the permanent political class. So those would be some names. Again, you're thinking the consensus is, Jennifer, that I'm catching is whoever it is, it's going to be a shock. It's going to be totally outside of the box. None of us would have seen it. So it'll be interesting to see. But yes, that is the strategy. You've got to have somebody that's more extreme than Trump. If you just put another Mike Pence figure in there, then you're gonna see another impeachment. They're gonna do everything they can to get rid of him. Missy, just heard Biden is forgiving student loans. I just saw it on my Twitter feed. Executive order, or are they just blowing steam again? Good question. I just saw it on my feed. Let's see. Did he do an executive order, or is he blowing steam? Where is it? It says canceling. I love that. It's canceling 7.4. And this is Newsmax. Have you noticed Newsmax headlines of late? They're really woke. I don't know what's going on with freaking Newsmax. What these guys, what they do. No, I know what's going on. What they do is they hire out people to write headlines or write articles, and they don't vet them well enough. And it turns out that they're just a bunch of other woke morons. Oh, by the way, I'm on Twitter, and we are live on Twitter. I don't know if you guys caught it. I'm looking at here on Broadcaster. We got 318 people on Twitter. All right, guys. Awesome. Love it. Big shout out to our Twitter audience. Check us out on Twitter if you've not already done so. Yeah, the Biden administration is canceling $7.4 billion in student loans. Canceling. The White House, I would have to take a look if it's I'm not seeing if it's well, he's calling it a new repayment plan that offers a faster route to forgiveness. We'll have to see. If it's legislation, it'll go nowhere. Maybe what he's trying to do is force some legislation and then force the Republicans to be embarrassed for not bringing it up in the House or voting against it in the Senate, something like that. He's just desperately trying to get the under 30 vote back. I mean, all the polls are coming out and they're all going Trump, so he's just desperate. Just think of it that way. Rich, Dr. Steve, the RNC finally is promoting ballot harvesting. You saw that. Isn't that great? Laura Trump said she was going to do it. Mike Watley's on the front lines. Mike, keep in mind, Mike Watley's done an amazing job. I'll get you in a second, Rich. But Mike Watley's done an amazing job in North Carolina, right? He was the head of the North Carolina Republican Party. He helped turn that state into a super majority red Republican state. So these guys they know what they're doing. They know how to, unlike Ronna McDaniel, they know how to win elections. So the RNC finally is promoting ballot harvesting in conservative areas of the country, but it seems that they or any Republican organization aren't doing anything about fake people and addresses on voter rolls that Democrats use to manufacture ballots. Right. It seems this critical work is left to concerned patriots groups like True the Vote and United Sovereign Americans, USA. Yeah, they're awesome. Why is the Republican establishment ignoring this area of voter fraud? I don't know the answer to that question, Rich. I don't know if they're thinking that farming it out to specialized organizations like True the Vote or EVA, Early Voting America. I forget what that's what Scott Pressler works with. And then yes, United Sovereign Americans, USA. I don't know if they feel like they could farm it out to them and that's good enough. And they have data to justify those decisions. I certainly hope they're making data-driven decisions. I just don't know the answer to it. I don't know. It would be cool to have someone like Laura Trump on or Scott Watley on to talk about that because that's obviously going to be that's obviously it's not Scott. I forget Watley's on, but that's obviously that's going to be I mean, this is it. I mean, Democrats are going to do everything they possibly can to cheat. We know that because they're seeing the polls. So the good news is I don't think the apparatus is there like it was in 2020, where they can get away with it as easily. The mail-in apparatus isn't there anymore. But regardless, we can't take anything for granted. I'm with you, Rich. So I'll have to follow up with that. That's a great question. Molly W from Arizona here. Great to hear from you, Molly. What the heck is Carrie Lake up to in regards to reaching out to Katie Hobbs over the current abortion ruling in Arizona? The idea that she would be asking the odious Hobbs to step in over this issue is crazy. Is Lake indeed a conservative? Your thoughts? Yeah. All right. So here's the deal as I understand it with abortion. You've got 17 states, if I recall, 14 or 7. I think it's 17 states that have banned abortion, and those abortion bans will stay. The vast majority of those populations want nothing to do with abortion. We're talking Missouri, Texas, Tennessee, Louisiana, Mississippi. We're talking deep red, strong Christian conservative public, Christian nationalist, literally values that want nothing to do with abortion. They are staying abortion free for the foreseeable future. Then you have another 30 states, nearly, not quite. What's it? Because I think the total is 41. So you have to subtract from there. So 20 something states that have very, very strict limits on abortion, up to about 15 weeks, right? Which was the Dobbs decision. That was Mississippi's bill that ended up overthrowing Roe v. Wade. So they will allow abortion up to 15 weeks, but then after that, it's gone. That's what you see in Russia. That's what you see. I think Russia's 12 weeks. That's what you see in Hungary and other socially conservative areas. And what you have to understand is that and then the rest are just far left-wing lunatic states. California, Illinois, New York. Illinois is only left-wing because of Chicago and Cook County, but Washington, Oregon, again, only because of Seattle and Portland, respectively. So they're just far left. They're nuts. They just eat this stuff up. So what the Supreme Court decided in Dobbs is that this is not an issue for the federal government. The Constitution does not deal with abortion. It simply does not. You would need to pass a constitutional amendment to bring in abortion there. This is an issue, therefore, based on our federalist structure, that has to be dealt with at the state level in accordance with the consent of the governed. Now, the consent of the governed in those 17 states and those additional 20-something states, that gives you about 42 to 43 states that have either banned abortion or have put severe limitations on abortion. That is the super, super, super majority of our country. And that is the pro-life spectrum today. The pro-life spectrum, it's a spectrum. You got to get that. I am fully pro-life, just so you know. I'm with Texas. I'm with Tennessee. I think abortion is an affront to human dignity. But not everyone agrees. There is a spectrum of people who are pro-life, who stand in the Judeo-Christian. I should call it Christian. I know Judeo-Christian has this strange connotation, and they stand in the Christian tradition, and they say image of God, everything. But I do allow for some exceptions, and I argue it from this vantage point. All right, fine. I mean, we can agree to disagree, and then we have to work it out politically. And when you work it out politically, there's a spectrum, and the spectrum is no abortion whatsoever, completely banned, or with the general exceptions, rape, incest, all that sort of stuff, and then very, very severe limitations, but it's allowed up to, say, 12, 15 weeks or so. What Carrie Lake, as I understand it, concluded is that Arizona is on that other side of the spectrum. They are not on this side. That's what she concluded. Arizonans are on this side of significant limitations, but they don't want an outright ban. And this 1862 law, which I have no problem with, I don't care if a law comes from 1862. That's what Democrats are going, this is a law from the Civil War era. Blah, blah, blah. Our Constitution is from the late 18th century. I mean, are we going to get rid of that too? It's just that kind of chronological snobbery makes no sense to me. But regardless, what I think Carrie Lake is simply doing is she's simply arguing, I know where my heart is, where my sentiments are, and I can make a very good argument for it, but I know where my constituents are on this. And they are for limitations, but not a ban, complete ban. And by the way, that's where about 80% of the country is. And that's why 41, 42 states are either that or a full-out ban. So that's what's going on. So is she a conservative? Yes. You got to watch out for the all or nothing approach. That's just the opposite of wokeness. That's the other side of wokeness. Wokeness doesn't allow for dissent. We've got to allow for dissent until we change the hearts and minds of people to freely embrace a full ban. I'm not saying it's going to happen or anything like that. I'm just saying if you want a full ban, you got to change the hearts and minds of people. I've heard it put this way. I really like this. If somebody is sick, giving them, really sick so that they can't hold anything down in their stomach, giving them a wholesome, good meal is only an occasion for them to throw it up. If people, I'm sorry to say this, I don't mean to be offensive, but if some people are just spiritually and morally sick, truth is just another occasion for them to vomit out. So you've got to work on the hearts and minds of people, their souls, so as to draw them into moral health. Then you will see legislation pass reflective of that moral health. All right. So the very fact that we're getting severe limitations on abortion, I think, is a win, given the current state of America and where we are morally right now, which is incredibly confused. We're very, very confused. So there you go. That's my take on it, Molly. Dave, what are the top priorities of a second Trump presidency? Crush the deep state, crush the deep state, crush the deep state, then crush the deep state. Yeah. I Schedule F, got to crush the deep state, collapse the border in terms of anybody coming through. Collapse the border is a way of putting it. Or secure the border, weird way of putting it. Secure the border, bring jobs back home, manufacturing jobs back home, and absolutely affirm Christian morality as the basis for a flourishing, united society. Those would be my my 4 priorities. Puppetgate. Do you remember when the Democrats and fake news pundits were cheering on a recession? I do. It was Bill Maher. Bill Maher was so, this is before COVID. Well, maybe we'll get a recession. That's the only way we'll get rid of him. You know, just that cynical, flippant kind of attitude he has. Oh, yeah. Oh, I know. And now they're doing everything. So, no, it's not a recession. No, two quarters of consecutive, 2 quarters of consecutive economic decreasing. No, it's not a recession. Yeah. So they're liars. Again, we're living an interregnum period, and an interregnum period, right? The period before the no longer and the not yet, right? So the dominant paradigm is falling. The new paradigm is yet to rise. And in that interregnum period, all knowledge has been politicized. That's why it's so hard to try to figure out what the hell to trust these days. And I hear it all the time because I'm in the trust business. That's what I do. My business model, as it were, is rooted in your trusting me, that I'm a reliable mediator of information. If I'm not, no one's going to give me the time of day, and you shouldn't. So it's so hard to know who to trust because all knowledge has been politicized today. All knowledge is partisanized. Everything, every sentence coming out of the mouths of CNN and MSNBC and ABC and NBC and CBS and New York Times has all been orchestrated so as to maximize the power of Democrats and minimize the power of Republicans. That's everything. Everything that's discussed will always work. Just look at the way they handled OJ yesterday. I mean, just so. OJ was the first real moment of wokeness in our country. Was right. It was at 1995, if I recall. He was the first major moment of wokeness where truth was now subservient to race and ethnicity, and truth to do an alliteration. Truth was now tribal. You could tribalize truth. That was the first time. Up to that point, we didn't know truth had a color. Truth was truth. It was objective, right? But no. Now truth is tribalized. And so just looking at the coverage yesterday, some of the commentary, I mean, just what he and Johnny Cochran were arguing for back in 95 and what BLM is arguing for today, there is literally no difference. None whatsoever. It was absolutely stunning. So there you go. Yep. So recession under Trump, good. Recession under Biden, bad. Puppetgate, do you remember the same thing? Richard Maynard, Dr. C. Joe Rogan predicted recently the Dems will replace Biden next month. Your thought? Yes, in May. I guess so. That is next month. That's right. Said I give him to May. Yeah. I featured that in one of our videos. Just to show it was such a wonderful reminder of how much the media lies. Because the media is trying to tell, Biden's on a comeback. The Biden surge. Remember, they kept calling it the Biden surge. He's making a comeback. This is amazing. This is incredible. And you have just independent commentators going, yeah, I think they'll replace him by May. And I'm thinking, wait a minute now. If you know nothing about the election at all, knew nothing about the two candidates, but you heard them talking about one of the candidates that way, would you think he's doing well? Would you think he's surging? No, obviously not. So, no, good. It's a good question. I honestly believe they're stuck with Biden. I like featuring talk about replacing Biden because I think it's an indicator of how flailing his candidacy really is. But I think they're stuck. I just don't. Gavin Newsom polls worse than Biden. And poll after poll after poll, Gavin Newsom polls worse. There's just no way around it. As does Kamala, of course. And then even Michelle. Michelle doesn't poll very well. They've got, but Biden, ironically, as an incumbent, he is the best they've got. And that's really not saying something. That's not saying much. Franz, with the IMF's plans to eliminate the U.S. dollar. Oh, you saw that as the world's reserve currency. How would that affect inflation here in the United States? Oh, how would that affect inflation? Good question. I think, well, so it all comes down to the run on our debt. If international holders of the dollar cash in their bonds all together at once, like $20 trillion worth, we're shot because we can't pay it. We literally can't pay, right? We got maybe $3 trillion to pay. I don't know what we got to pay, but we don't got 20 trillion. So basically, what we've been able to do is we've been able to be the world's policeman for so long, because so much of certainly since the 1970s, ever since the invention of the petrodollar, we've been able to do that because other countries buy up our treasury bonds. They buy up our debt, as we call it. They buy up our treasury bonds because they don't want to convert when they use the dollar in their international exchanges as the default currency of the globe. When they use the dollar in international exchanges, they don't want to convert it back into their indigenous currency because they end up losing money often in the exchange rate. So what they do is they just take that money and then they invest it in the United States. So we got a win-win. They're using our currency around the world to buy up goods, real goods, commodities, and the like. And then once whatever money they have left over or what have you, they just pump it back into the United States government in the form of bonds. And so that's enabled our government to be able to spend ridiculous amounts of money totally outside of the budget that we, the taxpayers, give them. And we're one of the few countries that can do that legitimately, precisely because all of that deficit spending is actually funded by the rest of the world buying up our bonds. They have the money. It's the problem is they have to give it back at some point, right? It's a debt. So as I understand it, the most cataclysmic fallout of the dollar no longer being the default currency is that other countries are going to run on that debt. They're going to want their money back. They're going to cash in on their bond all at the same time, or a lot around the same time, in a way that the U.S. federal government cannot pay it back. Just simply can't, because it's debt. So it seems to me if that happens, then there is inevitably a default on the loan. And if there's a default, then you see countries pulling out of investment in the United States, and then the dollar's worth nowhere near what it used to be. And so you think we got inflation now. Imagine now when, it costs, $50 to buy a Big Mac, right? So that's that's the connection I see with inflation. It'd be disastrous for sure. Now, keep in mind, IMF, I saw IMF, the headline was talking about that. Now, keep in mind, the default dollar is at multiple levels. It's not just used as currency. It's also used as, where they are investing. But it's also used in savings. A lot of people have dollars just in savings all over the world. And they won't necessarily get rid of that. That's still going to be in play. The dollar is used also in all these other kinds of transactions. That's still in play. So it's going to take a while for the dollar to be ditched entirely. That's not happening next month or even next year. That's going to take a while. But I like about your observation, Franz, is that we are seeing what was unthinkable 40 years ago. We are starting to see the world move away from the dollar. It's happening with BRICS, BRICS Plus, obviously. It's happening with SWIFT increasingly being replaced by KIPS, the Chinese system. We're seeing it with the gold stockpiles, We used to be, we at Fort Knox, right? We were number one in gold holdings. Now it's China like by 2/3. I mean, China is just absolutely crushing us in terms of gold holdings, as is Russia, as is India, as is Middle East countries. So they're defining the price of gold. That's why gold is skyrocketing. So it's good to get into gold now. In my opinion, I can't give financial advice, but right, I think gold is I think gold is going to go through the roof. Again, I don't know, but just given these trends, that's what it. And these are very different trends than we've seen in the last couple of decades. So good question, Franz. Excellent. Benton, it's been reported Biden has made the deep state more difficult to terminate. That's right. He has. How will Trump, if elected, be able to terminate these deep state actors? Because the same means by which you make it difficult, you make it less difficult. It's all just executive order, nothing more. And that's it. You live by executive order, you die by executive order. It's just that simple. Now, if the Republicans participate in Congress, then it gets harder, and they may do that. But again, I think there's enough opposition to it to thwart it. But regardless, no, I don't think so. Again, they'll do what they can to make it more difficult. But if it's an executive order, there's not a single executive order that can't get reversed. You live by it, you die by it. Wendy, and by the way, it's an admission they think he's going to win. Talk to my liberal sister, and she suggested that if we have states' rights, that we will be invaded. Interesting. I cannot wrap my head around how she came up with this at all. What's the best way to come back to this kind of craziness? It's hard. It's hard to argue with craziness. Yeah, it's just a very, very strange. I would say I would say states' rights do not in any way preclude the continuation of the federal military. It's one of the roles of the federal government is to maintain a vibrant defensive military for the defense of the homeland. That doesn't change. And as long as you have that military in place, you're going to have the requisite deterrence to keep possible invaders at bay. Good luck with her, by the way. Molly, Robert Jeffress was quoted in recent articles in the Christian Post saying that biblical Christians would know how to vote in upcoming election. The backlash in some comments was distinguished in the hatred shown towards Jeffress and President Trump. When you see how things here are economically, the border issues and the chaos of Ukraine and Israel, how can anyone not vote for President Trump? He's flawed, but look at Biden. Yeah, no, I hear you, Molly. And what I said earlier about the public versus private faith and how the privatization of faith radically changes the way we do faith. That'll explain it to you. Pastor Jeffress comes from a much more robust, Christian nationalist public faith. That's where he's coming from. So he and Trump just are simpatico. Then you're going to get these kind of much more, and again, I'm just making generalizations. These much more therapeutic, privatized Christians who just can't even relate to that kind of stuff. What you see economically and at the border, how can you not vote for Trump? I mean, I know it's going to sound controversial, but I do believe this. I was listening to a very interesting lecture. I did a video on it. Very interesting lecture by a full-time exorcist, a Roman Catholic exorcist. He's part of a ministry that deals with exorcisms all the time. He's been involved in thousands of them. It was a fascinating lecture. He talks about how he's encountered the same demon numerous times, actually a handful of demons numerous times in different patients, for lack of a better term. It's just so interesting of him describing their qualities and their name. The same, the same demon will have the same name and reveal himself through different people. It's absolutely fascinating stuff. And but he did say that one of the key characteristics of the demonic is self-hatred, because demons are fallen angels who were originally created, and there's billions and billions and billions of angels, right? Everyone has a guardian angel. So there's an angel for every single human being that's ever existed and will exist. So we're talking possibly even hundreds of billions of angels and already in existence who were created as a heavenly host. Angels don't have parents. They're created all at once. They're created with perfect knowledge, right? They don't know empirically, well, like we do through the senses. They know conceptually. So they're given perfect knowledge of us and of our world and of physics and all that sort of stuff. And then they're given the task to protect a particular person. And after they've done that, they're done. They go into the throne room of God. They've achieved their purpose. Not to be trite, but kind of like Clarence after he helped Charles Bailey, or he helped what's his name, Bailey, and It's a Wonderful Life. So as you guys can tell, I am so bad with names. I've always been bad with names. So what you end up having is these angels rejecting that call over their lives, that divine call of their lives. They hate it. They hate that for which they have been created. And so they fall. And that self-loathing, that hatred is part of their possession, the characteristics of their possession. People who are possessed tend to hurt themselves. They're prone to self-harm. And more than one exorcist has made the analogy to what we're doing to ourselves today. More than one exorcist has made, and it's called, by the way, territorial possession. Institutions, nations, peoples can be possessed. And I think we're going through a demonic possession. And that demonic possession is most explicitly manifested in the hatred that so many people inside America have for America. You could go all over the world. You could go to Russia. You can go to Iran. You can go to Japan, which I've been to many, many times. You can go to Brazil. Right? You can go anywhere in the world. Israel. You will not see a population that hates their country the way you see it here. It's called ecophobia. O-I-K-O. Eco, it's pronounced in the Greek. Ekos is the word for house in Greek. So we use that for economy. Ekos nomos, the law of the house. Ecophobia is a fear or an aversion of one's own. And I think that's what we're experiencing today. So I don't think it's anything rational. I don't. I think it's demonic in the end. So that's the only way I can explain such an irrational hatred of a country. I mean, Jordan Peterson has done his best to try to rationalize it through cultural Marxism and so forth. But then you have to ask, where does cultural Marxism come from, right? So I think in the end, it's demonic. And the only and then the ironies, you have all these so-called professed Christians who are all about burning down America. It's just astonishing. And that's I'm sorry. I thought that was it. You can't put a space there. I thought I was done. I could do my weekend, right? Franz, would it be fair to say that the invasion happening on our southern border is part of a larger strategy to offset the soft underbelly of liberalism? Look at you using some Kaufman, Eric Kaufman terms. Good for you, Franz. That's awesome. Yes. Yes. We see. Hi. Yes. Yeah, it is. I think even Elon Musk is saying it. They're demographically disappearing, and this is a way of compensating for that disappearance. Absolutely. I agree with that 1,000,000%. Just Jewel, and by the way, if anybody doesn't know, the soft underbelly of liberalism, I should say, just if we're being a little cryptic there, is the radical demographic discrepancy between conservatives and liberals, and particularly conservative Christians and atheists. For every one child an atheist has, a conservative Christian has two, so you have a full one-child advantage. Liberals, secularists are not at the replacement level of 2.1. They're at about 1.5, 1.3. Some studies are even underneath 1 at this point. Whereas conservative religionists in general, particularly conservatives and conservative Christians, are having way above the 2.1 replacement level. So by 2030, we should begin to see, this is Eric Kaufman, the culture wars begin to inordinately tip towards the side of the conservative Christians. Also because faith tends to be heritable, largely heritable. So kids growing up in conservative homes tend to inherit that conservatism, even if they kind of blow it off for a few years between 18 to 26. They do tend to eventually come back because faith is an expression of disposition. Disposition is largely inherited. It's largely genetic. So over time, that faith ends up becoming geographic, and we begin taking over. And that's the soft underbelly of liberalism. They are going to eventually see themselves as becoming nothing more than about 10 to 14% of the population. That by the end of the century. Jules, question, just out of curiosity, did you see that during BLM riots, one of the signs carried red, "Jesus is Palestinian"? I did not, but I wouldn't doubt it. You know, it's just part of the partization of our truths. Molly, Larry Elder for VP, possibly. I saw Larry Elder at Mar-a-Lago, and I met Trump. He was there endorsing Trump. So that's a possibility. Yeah, I have not seen that discussed though. Just for full disclosure. Linda, question: with farmland being bought, farms going broke, and people becoming more and more dependent on stores, I heard that Oregon is shutting down small gardeners selling produce. Is this part of taking control of people with food supply? It's definitely going to cause food prices to soar. It may be. I do think that's what's going on. How better to control people than to control their food? That goes all the way back to Stalin. If you inflict enough pain upon people, they will follow you anywhere for food. And that's obviously the Ukrainian famine was one of the most horrific elements of the Stalin-esque period. So yeah, no, I think there's something very, very nefarious going on there. Absolutely. This is all part of the refeudalization where billionaires and bureaucrats control pretty much everything. And then in the name of the planet, that it's their environmental apocalypticism. In the name of the planet, they believe they are fully justified in controlling your consumer choices, including the food you eat. Dave Jackson, crush the deep state sounds great, but that needs to be broken out into many parts. That's right. You're absolutely right. Courts, Justice Department, media complex. Wow, you're going all the way. Intelligence agencies. It will probably take a decade at least. Where do we start? Schedule F the best place, or can we make progress by successfully prosecuting DC judges? Yeah, I think the easiest place is Schedule F, because so the way the government is structured is you've got the executive branch, and then this whole massive executive, this whole massive complex of executive, sub-executive departments, all your three-letter agencies, and like they all get their power from the president. This is what makes the classified documents Mar-a-Lago case so absurd. Is the president cannot be guilty of handling classified versus wrongfully handling classified documents, because it's the president who ultimately has the authority to classify. Any authority that deep state operatives in the NSA or in Homeland Security or the Defense Department or anything, any authority they have to classify or declassify anything is derived from the president. It is derived from the duly elected executive in chief. So I would start there. That's the lowest hanging fruit. Prosecuting DC judges would be interesting. I don't know what I'm assuming that's legislative. I don't know. It's a good question. President appoints them, but then the legislatures have to approve them. So I don't know whose jurisdiction that comes under. Ultimately, I have an assumption that's under legislature. So Marjorie Taylor Greene, Matt Gaetz would be all for that. They'd be all, that's going to talk about the decade long stretch. That's going to take a while to institute, to have that kind of fighting spirit among Republicans there. Again, because remember, I say it all the time, Democrats own DC, Republicans rent. So you got to get rid of that renter mentality, and you have to have an invader mentality. We are taking over DC and we're kicking you out. So I would go there. There's been an effort to de-woke the universities. You bring those up. Or you brought up the media complex, but the university, I was thinking as well. Media complex, I mean, universities and media and so forth, just, I think, bottom line, build parallel institutions. That's what Brett Weinstein's been talking about a lot of late. Build parallel institutions, make it better, and relegate them to irrelevance, which is what we're doing right now. We do our news through the network society, through the internet, through the mass swath of the world that we have available to us. We have available to us the same digital information at the same time that the media has. The difference now is just how we're going to interpret that. And then we go to independent content creators to help with the interpretation of the same digitally derived data that the rest of the media has. For the first time ever, we have access to the same data that ABC, NBC, and New York Times has, and CNN, and so forth. We all got the same data. Now it's just interpreting the data. No one trusts their interpretations anymore because they see how partisanized it's become through advocacy journalism. So now we're just going to various different scattered independent content creators who are interpreting that data for us, like we do at this channel, and then determining which ones that we think are best based on what we know. And it's using corroboration, looking at various different sources to determine that. Just looking at, sorry, I just got, we're getting more. Look at that. We're hitting over 400 on Twitter. That's great. Great to see you guys. Awesome. Sorry, Dave. So low-hanging fruit, Schedule F. Definitely. Not sure about how get rid of that corrupt DC judicial system. I have to ask, Robert Barnes would know. Check out what Robert and Viva Fry, maybe shoot them a question and see what they think, how you get rid of the DC. Certainly Barnes more. And then media complex, and that's all Justice Department, all falls under courts, Justice Department, intelligence agencies, is all that's going to be Schedule F. Media complex, universities, parallel structures, and that's what we're doing. Love you, Dave. Thank you. And that is it, gang. I love each and every one of you. Hey, thanks for all you guys on X for joining on in. Great to see you all there. It's so awesome to have you here. And make sure if you haven't already, make sure to subscribe to our Twitter feed. We need that with the way we've been getting throttled by big tech. We definitely need to expand our Twitter reach as well. Thank God for Elon Musk. Love you guys. Have a wonderful weekend. I will be back on Monday for a whole new week of analysis of a new conservative age rising. God bless, guys.